Season 10 is upon us, and with Season 10, probably the largest amount of viable builds we've ever had in D4. And in this one, we'll cover at least one build per class that I deem to be the absolute top build of the season, and one that is simply just fun. Because while some people enjoy dragging their balls through 15-minute pit runs and watching enemy health bars slowly go down, I do not, and would much rather play something enjoyable. And starting us right off, we're checking out the Sorcerer, and the only class where the strongest build is also going to be the most fun one of the season, in my opinion. And it's, of course, blue balls of lightning. The main reason as to why this build is beyond broken in Season 10 is simple. The new Chaos powers, or perks, or whatever, and they're truly broken as the build was already clearing upwards of pit 120 on the PTR, dealing trillions upon trillions of damage. The main Chaos power being advanced techniques. This thing is so unbelievably disgusting, especially when combined with ball lightning, as it's the easiest skill in the entire game to get a bunch of ranks in. Because we can get upwards of 50 ranks to this skill, meaning somewhere in the ballpark of a fuckton of damage, and the downside here, the increased mana cost, is actually a buff to the build as well, because by spending more resources we can utilize the Banished Lord's Talisman to overpower each cast. And again, Ball Lightning is the perfect skill for this because it already has a high base mana cost. But Mr. Big Dick Senpai, how the hell am I supposed to use this skill if it costs a gazillion mana each cast? Chill out, my man. To offset this, we got the dumbest power of all time, Mana Shield. And why is it dumb? Because it's so unbelievably broken. Using this, we have close to 0 max life, but instead, we take damage via our mana instead. And this mana is increased by each point of intelligence we have, essentially making us unkillable. And on top of that, we're getting 5,000% mana regen as long as we don't take damage. Which is not a problem at all. Just move out of enemy range, pop your flame shield making you immortal, and you can top off your mana bar with literally any mana generation skill. Now to fully maximize your damage here, you're getting several other chaos perks that more than doubles your damage, obviously, because why the hell not? But you're also going to play Strike of Stormhorn when doing any difficult content. This thing is simply unmatched when it comes to damage, allowing it to generate several 100% additional damage. But Mr. Big Penis Man, I'm not interested in pit pushing. Do you have any other build I can play? Yes, the exact same build, but with Okuns instead. This one will allow you to have the balls spin around you, so all you need to do is teleport right on top of your enemies, one-tap them, and move on. And what's even better, this season it's easier than ever to perma-teleport now that you can just slap on Flicker Step and a normal pair of boots, allowing you to become fast as hell with close to 0 investment. Great, huh? Yeah, and it's why this build will be my main build of the season. Alright, before we continue, the Crimson Market is giving away one of their top-tier custom-built PCs again, and now you can make your own Giga PC. You can get one of 4 prize tiers, and you're able to customize it to your heart's content. Want a massive penis PC? Well, they're allowing for 3D printing, so I'm sure you can finally own one. And if you win and don't want a PC for some reason, just take the cash and go on a shopping spree. It's all up to you. To enter, just press the Join Now button, select a tier that you want, or use the golden ticket for a free month. And doing so, you're supporting me, Woody, and other content creators at the same time. So, do it, you hunk of a man. Okay, next, we're checking out one, if not my favorite class in the game, the Rogue. So what's the best Rogue build of the season? Well, you're looking at it. This may not come as a surprise to any of you, as it's been the dominating Rogue build for several seasons now. Blizzard keeps trying to nuke it, but it keeps coming back. What's unfortunate, though, is that it is now insanely annoying to get online. It still has the same damage, the same speed, and same clearing capabilities. But I think the changes made to resource generation is why I would only recommend playing it when you're far into the endgame and can spend some gear and resources on optimizing your tempers and cooldown reduction. Alright, and what the hell changed then? Previously, we used Aftermath to instantly reset our energy with ease. Just slap on some additional passive ranks and you were basically done with your resources and could spend the remaining tempers on cooldown reduction as to make Death Trap spammable. But now, Aftermath got obliterated. You now only get like 35 energy from this fucking thing, rather than hundreds upon hundreds of energy, and you'll have to get Ultimate's Restore Energy as Tempers now, which shares the same slot as cooldown reduction. So yeah, that's rough, but it's definitely still playable if you invest in it. The second build here, though, was my favorite build out of all the builds I tested during the PTR, and one of my favorite builds of all time, Spin to Win Poison Trap. This used to be somewhat of a meme build, but holy shit is it good now. And first things first, how does it work? The answer to that, my friends, is the reworked Bursting Venoms aspect. We used to use this thing for a bunch of other builds to trigger lucky hits, such as with the old Andariel's build. Rest in peace, brother. But now it's finally finding some use again, reworked to function with Poison Trap instead. So here's what we want to do. We want to spam a shit ton of lucky hits all over the screen, triggering this aspect, which in turn drops poison traps. Doing this, you almost have a complete build, but we can make it even better via two uniques. First one being bands of Icarus Rose, substantially increasing our damage for poison traps and allowing us to throw twice as many. And perhaps more importantly, Scoundrel's Leathers. This thing allows us not only to actually throw poison traps, which when spinning almost feels like using aimbot, but it also transforms Poison Trap into a core skill, allowing us to stack up multiplier after multipliers for a bunch more damage. On top of that, the build also received some substantial buffs to the Chaos powers after the PTR, reworking some of them. So while you're seeing Pit 90s being blasted here, you can probably do the same thing to Pit 100s now. And speaking of Chaos powers, the main one is definitely Hit and Run, allowing you to stack up a 50% multiplier every 15 meters you move. And as you should already be capped at movement speed when playing this build, let's just say we move around a lot, stacking it up like crazy. Alright, the only thing I'd like to leave you with here is a bit of a heads up. Before rocking the build, you definitely want to sort out your movement speed, get your main uniques, and the poison burst aspect. But it's also insanely important that you temper on traps arm faster, because without it, you're going to throw out poison traps too fast for them to trigger, which means you'll have too many of them out at once. And this happens. Not good. Okay, so that's the rogue. Let's check another class that's also looking fine as hell in Season 10. The Emo Fuckboy, Pegging God. This class has a bunch of great builds this season that should be clearing well into the Pit 100s. Bloodwave, Bone Spirit, Boner Spear, Minions, and more. But the strongest one is definitely going to be the Shadow Blight build. Unfortunate thing is that it's also pretty damn fun to play, and perhaps even better. You only really need one of the Chaos powers and you're online. So for anyone new to the build, how the hell does it work? As the name entails, it's all about Shadow Blight, baby. This thing got giga buffed. Basically, every 8th shadow damage you deal, you trigger a Shadow Blight explosion, where its damage scaling is what mainly got giga buffed, upwards of a 5.5 additional multiplier. On top of that, it can crit, it double dips with additive shadow damage, and its aspect are absolutely disgusting. But that's not all, because you also have to actually proc the thing. And you're in luck this season, because you can now actually keep Soul Rift up at all times, actually having it being a spammable skill. This is due to Alter the Balance Chaos perk. Basically, you use this, and the ultimate skills are completely spammable. This does, however, put your blight on a cooldown instead, but for most of the content, you won't even need it. Alright, and for my top pick for fun build, we have Bonus Splinters. We covered this build long ago, back in Season 4 or something, and it was already back then a good build. But it had some massive issues. For example, a lot of uniques did not work for the build, and it didn't pierce enemies, meaning you had to crawl so far up the enemy's asshole to actually hit something, you couldn't even figure out if the light at the end of the tunnel was the mouth or anus. Now, though, shit seemed to be working, pun intended, and we also got a new unique, Gospel of the Devotee, that allows our splinters to pierce. Good stuff. And how do we spawn the splinters? Because they're not on our bars, are they? Nope. We spawn them via the Shattered Spirits aspect. By busting out a bunch of bonus spirits and grabbing some extra splinters, you're busting out 36 goddamn splinters per bone spirit cast. Not only that, they're also getting a 10x multiplier on top of that. Pretty busted. Just be aware, this is not an early game build. You'll have to reach endgame as to get your tempers and cooldown reduction to bring the build online. And preferably also the unique, but once you do, the build feels great to play. And with that, we're leaving the Pegging Lord and checking out the fat wood-chopping man. This is yet another class that has insane amounts of strong builds in Season 10. But the best one, to no one's surprise, is yet again the Pulverizer. Now, this build was already the best one in previous season, but this time we're getting some crazy-ass chaos perks. Overabundance, for starters, will generate a shit ton of damage. On top of that, we'll be overpowering and using Brawn over Brains, and this thing got buffed after the PTR for some reason, not only granting us a gazillion damage, but also makes us immortal, and if that wasn't enough, we can now utilize the Rotting Lightbringer as an armor piece, meaning we're freeing up a two-handed weapon slot, which more than doubles our damage yet again. And when it comes to the playstyle, there's not much to say really. It's the same build as in Season 9, with way more damage, and you'll require some additional spirit generation when you're in the end game and juicing up your damage with the Chaos perks. But other than that, you can play the build from level 1, and it just gets better and better until it gets so fucking good that you're dealing trillions of damage. Now, if you've already played Pulverize, then you have to check this build out. It's a Raven build. It's not quite as OP as Pulverize, but it's not far from it, as it's definitely a S-tier build as well. Ravens have been dogshit for 10 seasons though, so what's new? Well, a lot actually. But first and foremost, we have the addition of Kilt of Black Wing. This new pair of pantaloonies allows us to not only get a buttload of Raven ranks, the chance to deal double damage, and a big-ass multiplier from the aspect, but we're also getting the ability to spam Ravens simply by shape-shifting or using any companion skill. Which also means that there will be several ways of playing the build, as there's a lot of ways to summon these bad boys. But honestly, that's not really enough to make the build this insane. Combine this with savagery though, and it definitely is. We're getting a large multiplier here, sure, but the most important is turning our companion skills into core skills. This is not only important for Ravens, but all companion builds, as we can stack huge amounts of core skill ranks for additional damage. Combine this with some additional buffs and bug fixes, and you now have one of the best and most fun builds in the entire game. If I'm not going ball lightning, then this is definitely the build I'll be maining this season. Alright, let's leave the fat wood-chopping man to chop some wood or whatever and check out the next class, the shit-smearing barbarian. While some of the other classes are seeing a huge shift in their meta, allowing for some never-before-played builds, Barb is looking to be extremely similar to the previous seasons, but with some substantial buffs with great variety. You'll probably see upwards of 10 Barb builds clearing Pit 100 this season, for example, but the overall strongest build is still looking to be Lunging Strike. It's got insane speed, insane damage, clear, and everything you'll need. The only downside really is hordes, where there will be stronger options. So, is there anything changing when it comes to lunging strike this season? Sure, it's not a lot, but there are some important changes. One of the most important ones is that of Battle Trance. This unique is now finally usable, because you're able to stack up frenzy charges without actually having to use frenzy. When you do this, you're gaining a huge multiplier and attack speed. But possibly more important, the stats on this thing is just fucking disgusting. With GA, you can get more than 40 max fury or strength, where the former pairs perfectly with the Ramaladni's sword. It's also possible to play lunging strike without actually playing lunging strike this season. For example, here I'm playing frenzy and trigger lunging strike that way for additional damage, bleed, and berserking. Probably the first time that frenzy is actually good. Other than that though, the build is similar, but stronger than in Season 9. For my top pick of fun as hell build, obviously it's Hota. This is a skill that's been in the shitter since it got nuked back in like Season 5 or something, and it's since then been a meme build. But now, actually pretty damn good, with some actual big stonks. And after the PTR, the build got the biggest buff imaginable, making it even better. So, what has changed? Well, for starters, Hota deals extra damage per amount of fury again. So that's a good change. Secondly, we're getting the frenzy buffs we talked about earlier in the lunging strike build. But my favorite buff is that you can now re-equip Ramaladni as a chaos armor, and in turn, not having to actually use the weapon itself to gain its buff. This means that we're not only getting crit damage from stacking fury now, but also a gigantic multiplier from Ramaladni's. Overall, Hota is looking great. If you've missed playing it, then it's definitely time to boot up the old shit smearer again and try it out. Alright, for the final class of the day, we have the Soyborn. Here, the German butthead is playing the best Spiritborn build, the Kepelecki Touch of Death. It's a fine build for one thing, pit pushing. Because unfortunately the build is clunky as fuck to play, so instead I'll focus on two banger fun builds. And starting us off, we're checking out the Harambe build. This thing is also absolutely disgusting in Season 10, focusing entirely on guerrilla skills. Fun fact though, this footage you're seeing is while the ultimate was bugged, granting them shields for several times their health. Without this bug though, you're definitely farming pit 100s with some good gear. In any way, what has changed? Why is this build good again, and why do we only run Harambe skills? Great question, Pera. In Season 10, we're getting this fine piece of gear, whatever the fuck they're called. This alone grants us upwards of 15 guerrilla skill ranks and doubles our damage when we use the Harambe ultimate. And that ultimate, my friends, has been reworked and now also grants us additional damage. On top of that, there are some interesting ways of playing this build, all relying around the chaos powers. This showcase, though, is of a basic version, but just know, you can play this with evade, basic skills, and a bunch of other crap, but personally, I just enjoy the standard version. And finally, the final build of the day, Evade Spiritborn. The last build of the day, but possibly the best one. Because this one has insane amounts of speed, it's got aimbot, it's great in hordes, and, well, just about anything in the game. It's been strong ever since Season 6, but in this season it's receiving some humongous buffs. For starters, the Eagle Spirit Halls have been reworked, granting us some strong damage buffs. On top of that, it's easier than ever to get it online, as we now have Alacrity, allowing us to reset our evade cooldown much easier than before. And finally, the biggest buff of them all, we're able to equip 3 two-handed weapons. Not sure where you'd store all of them, but somehow they are all usable at once, granting you some crazy-ass multipliers. So, if you want to be fast and play something absolutely brain-dead, play this. I'm not sure how good it is on a controller, but for the people that have some self-respect and bought a PC, you just bind evade to scroll wheel, start scrolling, and you're permanently evading. Pretty fun. And with that, we're done with this shitty video. Check out Crimson Market, drop a sub, and I'll see you in the next one.
So long, gay boys!